easy to lose focus on the areas where we might actually have impact. We're going to start dancing with some of those. Robert Harris is the founder of the Harris Law Firm. He works with the Independent Party. Barbara Fuller is chair of the Marion County Democrats. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Jefferson.
And good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Jefferson. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Robert.
Robert, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the things happening at the grassroots level in Oregon that are either being avoided by or being overlooked by this clamorous, contentious, loud, historically relevant national political conversation? What is getting ignored, and or where are good opportunities for people to pay attention?
Well, I think probably the one area I think most people, maybe your listeners would also be most interested in, is the most recent initiative that's just been approved for circulation by the Secretary of State, which is Oregon's own sort of anti-Citizens United bill, which would seek to amend the Oregon Constitution that would allow Oregon to limit contribution limits just as 44 other states do. So Secretary of State just approved that for circulation. It's available at the Progressive Party website. Most likely, I haven't seen it, but they're the main sponsors of this, Dan Meek. And if people are interested, that's a really good area where they could go out and get some signatures and have an impact.
So one thing, people look at local ballot initiatives. We're going to soon be going over some of those local ballot initiatives. I know that Bud Pierce, former candidate former candidate for governor, also served as chairperson of the Republican Party in Oregon, just put on the ballot, or is putting on at least to gather signatures for, a term limits ballot initiative. There are others. We'll get into those on this show. You put one on the table, which contribution limits. The Progressive Party is working on that. Barbara Fuller, what in your world is happening at the grassroots level of politics in Oregon?
Well, I think just as we're seeing at the national level, where people are showing up at legislators' offices and so on, at the local level, that's just as important. It's so important for people to be involved and to show up and know what's going on. And there are so many different ways to do that. You can do that with your own neighborhood. You can do it with your city council. You can do it with your state representatives and officials, and with your federal people as well. And I think there's just a lot of different ways for you to be involved, and I think that's really, really important at this point in time. We've seen that it makes a difference. I mean, just recently we have the GOP has had several senators who come out against their version, the Republican version of the Trump care, and that is because they've heard from their local constituents.
And so much what we hear, if we pay attention to national podcasts, national advocates, big national Twitter feeds, because there's no such thing as a big local Twitter feed. I mean, there's kind of big ones, but the folks who have 2 million Twitter followers, these are folks who have national or international followings. When we look at the advice they're giving, it's like, oh yeah, go to your healthcare town halls. If you live in Oregon, like, okay, well, I already know where Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley are on the Trump care, Ryan care, don't care plan. I already know that. So going to their town halls, I can say thank you, but I don't know if it's going to have that much impact. Meanwhile, state legislative races get decided by not very many votes. Ballot initiative campaigns often need signature gatherers. Going to the thing that you said, Robert, let's say somebody was listening or somebody heard word from this conversation and said, oh, he said there's a campaign finance reform measure that might get on the ballot. I'm supposed to maybe help with that because I care about that issue. What should I do?
Well, what you can do is download, should be online, probably the Progressive Party by now, their website. Download the petition. There's a signature sheet also. You can go get 10 or 15 or 20 signatures if you'd like to. There's instructions on how to do it. Get your neighbors, get your family, get 3 signatures. Get the people in your house and send it on in. They need 1,000 signatures to get a ballot title on this. And that's step number 1. And then step number 2, once it gets on there, they're going to continue to need more signatures because of this constitutional amendment. So it'll take over 100,000 signatures, but there's plenty of time to do it. And this is one area where you can get out, talk to your neighbors about the importance of this. This is a process improvement. It's not necessarily a particular policy, but, being lawyers like you, Jefferson, too, I do believe in a good process. If you have a good process, you'll get a better product. So at the front end, improving the process is very important, and I think it's important for people to go out there and talk to their neighbors about this.
All right, Barbara, you're chair of the Marion County Democrats. That covers Salem and surrounding area. Although if you're in the surrounding area, you probably don't like it being called the surrounding area.
Correct.
What are the other areas in Marion County? What's the place in Marion County that hates it most when you call it the surrounding area?
Well, I don't know if
Kaiser?
they hate it the most, but well, there's Kaiser, but there's also, Marion County includes Woodburn, includes Silverton, and of course, just as Robert was talking about talking to your neighbors, they also have their own local races for like school board, for their own city council, and so on. So when we focus on Marion County efforts, we don't just look at the city of Salem. We look at Marion County and try to find ways to support Woodburn and Silverton, and whether it's canvassing or whatever. I was glad to hear Robert talk about the importance of contacting your neighbors. That's such a critical piece, because even though he's right, or you were right, Jefferson, that we already know where Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley's are, and Representative Schrader, we also have all the local races, and there is money from the outside coming into these local races to have an impact on our local school board elections, on our transit authority, and we need to have folks involved in those, because the grassroots work really begins at the local level, and it's so important to meet your local officials, not just your legislators, but your mayors, your city council people. One of the things we're doing here in Marion County is we've got a big gala in October. It's on October 1st, and we're going to be recognizing some of the long-term legislators that have really put in some time for Oregon, not just Marion County, but Oregon, such as Representative Betty Comp and also Meredith Smith. So they've done a lot of work over the years, and it's very important for us to keep those connections, to recognize them and honor them, because it's no easy step to run for any kind of an office, and whether it be school board or whether it be a state representative, that takes a lot of time and effort, and we really want to recognize those people and thank them.
Somebody's buzzing, and I'm enjoying it. I think in the Trump era in particular, when we have a president who literally has golden chairs, okay, he literally has golden chairs, and we see a president, not just Donald Trump, getting driven around in limousines. And we have a current president who, spends a bunch of time on the golf course, and so other presidents spent time on golf courses, and goes, spends a bunch of time at a huge mansion complex in Florida. And people, I think, equate, and because also in our power, people equate generally wealth with power, I think there is an idea that if you had the Marion County Democrats, there would have to be at least like one limousine. Right? Like at least you'd have like one limousine. But the reality, it seems to me, that of state legislators who don't really get paid full-time wages, of county party advocates who don't get paid typically anything, it is a relatively humble affair. Can you help paint the picture for people, Barbara Fuller, of what it's like to participate in a local Democratic Party for people who are like, oh yeah, I've been watching the news. Maybe I should do something other than just watch the news.
Well, as Robert said earlier, meet with your neighbors, and there's lots of ways to do that. You can, go out and knock on doors, and it's not just during election time. Go out and meet with your neighbors and make those connections. Most of them have the same interests as you do, at least at the local level. I mean, they're interested whether their sidewalks and their streets get improved, and you can lead that conversation into, the state measures. Just as he was talking about the local ballot measure that the Secretary of State is just approved to put out. Also with your state representatives. Oregon is one of the few states that has a Democratic legislature, and that comes from that grassroots efforts of meeting people, talking to your neighbors, canvassing during elections, but also, just having these ongoing meetings, whether it's a house party, meet with your local legislators and officials, attend city council meetings. It's that face-to-face human contact is really what makes the difference. And for the local legislators, for us to show up at their hearings, at their town halls, at city council, they know they're being listened to. They know that we care. And sometimes they may not want to hear what we say, but for us to be there, it makes all the difference in the world, and it gives them the support they need to keep going on.
Rob Harris, what's happening with the Independent Party? That my simplistic understanding of it was that it was a smart move by Dan Meek and a couple others early on to add the Independent Party on the ballot. Then I think it was just independent, didn't have party attached to it in the word. And so the critique of it came that, well, people were clicking independent, which they meant was neither and none. And meanwhile, they were joining a party. What is the Independent Party doing now to be more and more of a mature party? And How is the current kind of political climate, where we certainly had lots of voters who weren't very excited about either presidential candidate, that could provide an opening for an organization like the Independent Party? What are y'all doing?
Well, right now we're working on what I refer to as an either extended platform or a more detailed platform. We've gone through surveys a lot over the last 8 or 10 years, and we've sort of been stuck there a little bit. As far as doing surveys, putting some general statements out, being a pro-consumer, pro-small business, pro-taxpayer, efficient taxpayer money type party, but we need to go further than that. And we are working on that. We've taken the surveys. We've talked to a lot of our members, some more active than others. And I think you'll see from the Independent Party this summer at some point, or towards the end of summer probably, what we would call an extended platform that gets into more details. I think we realize we need to take on more issues. Initially, you're right, the party was formed to sort of be a platform. I used to say the IPO is a platform. It doesn't necessarily have a platform. So it would allow someone, an independent or non-affiliated, or maybe a Democrat or Republican who wasn't necessarily going to get their nomination, an opportunity to run for office and give people more choices on the ballot. I think we need to go beyond that. I agree. I think, however, that to say that people don't know they're members of the Independent Party or they don't understand what it's about misses the point a little bit. I think when you think about who are non-affiliated, who are independent voters, well, they're generally not to the far left, but they're not to the far right. There are parties for that. They're either Republican or Democrat, or they're progressive, or they're Green, or they're Libertarian, or the Constitution Party. When you think of an independent voter, you think of someone who's relatively moderate. And by moderate, I don't necessarily mean that every single position they hold is right in the middle between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's more eclectic, I would say. They hold varied positions that don't necessarily fit well with the Democrats or the Republicans, but they're not radical.
Yeah, pause there. That's what I think is, because I agree that there isn't the obvious party space, okay, that is a consistent party space between Democrats and Republicans, because frankly, Democrats and Republicans, I know those aren't the only two political parties other than the Independent Party, but they typically fight over that, whatever that middle space might be. And even if it doesn't seem like they're fighting over it in arguments, they are definitely fighting over it during fundraising time as candidates. So the Independent Party is a collection of eclectic folks, kind of like Xray is a collection of eclectic programming or content. How do you craft that eclectic mixture into something that looks like a party platform?
Well, I think there are widely held positions that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans endorse.
For
generally,
instance,
the leadership, campaign finance reform.
Yep.
That one right there. Neither the Democrats nor the Republican leadership. I will say most Democrats, if you voted or took a poll, 85% of them would probably say, yes, we need some form of campaign finance reform, but the Democratic leadership does not favor it. To take a really hot button issue, I would say, abortion is an issue. That they've fought over that. You get the far left, the very pro-choice people, the very anti-choice people. There is some room in the middle there, although I don't think we're ever going to take a position on that, because I think that is an individual moral choice that I think people have to determine on their own. But there are issues out there that do fall within the middle. And like I say, campaign finance reform is one. Another one is tax subsidies to businesses. You get both Democrats and Republicans, generally, who support them. I was working with Jody Weiser on Tax Fairness Oregon, and we developed what we called a Taxpayer Return on Investment Act. We got no traction with Democrats or Republicans in Salem. All we asked was that any tax incentive for business return to the taxpayer at least as much as it costs the taxpayer. If they said they're going to create jobs, they need to show it, and they need to prove it. And if they don't, there's a clawback. That got no traction. But if you ask most voters, they would say that makes perfectly good sense. So there are a couple of issues out there. Economic issues is what we mainly focus on. Fairness issues, consumer issues, that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans fairly represent, I think, the majority position.
Barbara, let me ask you, and we only have a minute or two left, but let me ask you. I hear this. I hear campaign finance reform, and I hear consumer protection, and I hear trying to be careful with business subsidies, and people in legislative leadership, congressional leadership, regardless of party, seem to be not always on the people's side on those issues. And that gets my jaundiced partisan eye to think not only, oh, well, that means we need a different party, to like, no, that means we might need leadership transformation within a party. But what's your response to what Rob is saying as somebody who's leading a grassroots political party of the Democrats? How do you think through critiques of a political party?
Well, certainly we want to make sure that we are supporting what our membership wants. So that, for example, the Democratic Party does have a platform. We meet every couple of years and we look at the various issues. And campaign finance is one of the issues that we look at for the Democratic Party of Oregon. And we try to support those candidates who reflect those same interests. I'm just moving on from campaign finance, a couple of other issues. We certainly support the governor's stand and our law that says Oregon is a sanctuary state. We have a law in Oregon that we do not use our monies to support federal, for example, ICE agents. So we have those laws in place. We also are certainly concerned with the federal move right now to try and get all voter information housed in the vice president's office, in Vice President Pence's office. Those are things that I think concern not just the Democratic Party, but I think they concern all Oregonians as well as many other states. And our platform is going to be looking at those things. And at the local level, we certainly are, talking to our representatives, to our state senators, to our local officials to make sure that in Salem we reflect those same values all the way up to the state legislature, and then making sure that our senators, Wyden and Merkley and Schrader also know that this is what Oregon wants. And I think that's the best way to do that. I think there are, like I said, other issues certainly that we all care about too, whether it's, looking at how school boards are funded, whether we're looking at the trying to make sure that the school boards reflect our local needs.
Yeah, but pause there for a second, because you said something that's really interesting at the very beginning of what you said, which is, campaign finance reform, for instance, that's part of the Democratic Party of Oregon platform. What I find interesting is that when I'm listening to you, Robert, and I hear, we want to do something to make sure there aren't misbegotten corporate subsidies, and there is campaign finance reform, and if you were to go into the Marion County Democratic Party office, I don't know, Barbara, do you have an office? If you go to one of the monthly meetings,
yes,
and you poll the participants, or even looked at the platform, you'd have almost entire agreement. And what's ironic, and that is not to say, therefore, there's no room for any other political party. That is what I just find it interesting, because what's also ironic is that Peter Courtney, the president of the Oregon Senate, is Marion County adjacent.
Yes.
And it is in fact, and I don't know, Barbara, where y'all might land on national popular vote, but I could imagine a bunch of Marion County activists. I could imagine Aileen Kay saying, national popular vote might be a good idea. I certainly have a pretty good sense of how she feels about some of the environmental stuff that she hoped happened but didn't happen in the last legislative session. And meanwhile, some of the blockers of that feel not too far away. Barbara, does that get frustrating, or does that just inspire you to work harder?
No, that inspired us to work harder. In fact, Marion County Democrats did pass a resolution, as we did in many other counties across Oregon and in other states, to have a national popular vote. And we did send that to Senator Courtney early on. And, Senator Courtney's changed his stand a little bit. He actually was willing to let this go to a vote, and it really got blocked at another place on the line. And I think it was just, trading off the things that they thought were more important, and this they didn't feel was as critical. But Marion County did take a stand on that. We do send letters. We do contact. We go and show up for our testimony. We have a legislative subcommittee that tracks numerous bills that affect Marion County as well as all Oregonians. And we show up and we do participate.
Rob, anything you want to plug? Anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think we got it covered, Jeff.
Well, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Where can people check out your stuff?
I have a blog called OregonOutpost.com. You can go there and see my latest thoughts, some of which are rational, some are not probably, but go ahead and dig in.
Rob, thanks for joining us. Barbara Foley, anything you want to plug?
I would just say, people come to our meetings. We meet the third Thursday of every month. We have a website, www.mariondemocrats.org, and you can find out about our fundraiser there. And last year, the governor was our keynote speaker, and Jefferson, we're thrilled to have you as our auctioneer this year. So
I should disclose that, but don't worry, it ain't a well-paid gig. In fact, it's not a paid gig.
This is not a paid gig.
This is not. This is disclosure without the payola or the plugola. But right. But Barbara, I do appreciate your work. Rob, I do appreciate your work. Thanks, folks, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're listening to KXRY Portland, 91.1, 107.1 FM, KXRY WLP Vancouver at 99.9 FM, streaming online everywhere at xray.fm.